Judge Starr, just an observation. I'd be curious your opinion. So there's this movement afoot all across the nation, particularly in Democrat states, left-wing organizations, to get rid of the Electoral College and have this national vote, the national popular vote. And so we look at that on the one hand. On the other hand, we see litigation by many of the same groups in the same party in states like Pennsylvania to have judges change the laws as opposed to the representatives in the state legislatures, the representatives at the lowest point of our government, who get to make the law. And they're saying, no, in that case, we want judges to decide. Don't you find that a little bit contradictory and self-serving for the Democrat Party to be pushing the national popular vote on the one hand, but undermining state legislatures and going to judges to get their way on another hand?
And there is a contradiction, and the unifying theme is we don't like the constitutional structure. In Portland, Oregon, they were burning their Bibles. If this kind of cultural trend continues, maybe we'll see public burnings of the Constitution. The Constitution is incredibly sensitive to the very idea that we are the United States of America. We're not just America, we are the United States of America. And we fought a civil war and have inherited the great, great rhetoric of Abraham Lincoln about this union of states. So there to be no secessions, and that means states count. The beauty of the states, even in the age of interconnectivity, is that not all answers are in Washington, D.C. The laboratory of the states, all this fits together. And so that's why the electors, as ordained at the founding in Philadelphia, the founding generation was very sensitive to the idea and the ideals of a federal republic, bound together by one constitution as the supreme law of the land, as the Constitution itself states. The Electoral College reflects the beauty of federalism. Now, we either like the idea of the United States of America, or we will prefer then we just want California, New York, and Illinois, and a couple of other states to decide who the next president may be. So if you live in, quote, flyover country, we don't care about you. You're out. And I think that's a very destabilizing, disruptive kind of attitude toward we the people. It's not we the people of America. It's we the people of the United States of America. So I think North Dakota should continue to count.
Yeah, and continue to produce the fuel that we need in the rest of the country. All right, I want to make a point on your point. I see a war on the Constitution by the left and the Democrat Party, whether they're litigating. We've talked about Pennsylvania, and Pennsylvania is not the only state. Activities took place in Georgia, in Wisconsin, in Michigan, in other states. Over 300 lawsuits were brought in the course of the last year, 300 lawsuits to affect the voting system, which is why you see such a difference between 2016 and 2020. But that said, I see a war on the Constitution by the left and the Democrat Party. Before this election, they were talking about stacking the Supreme Court and packing the Supreme Court. Before this election, they were talking about adding 4 Democrats forevermore in the United States Senate. They were talking about eliminating the filibuster rule, which isn't in the Constitution, but certainly is compatible with the notion of the great deliberative body. They've talked about war on the Electoral College. Now, they're not talking about any of that right now. But they did go into the courtrooms or go to their legislatures and try to change the methodology by which votes are counted, by which votes are cast. The Democrat Party didn't do this because they believe in good government. They didn't do this because they believe in fairness between the parties. They did this because they're trying to stack the system, particularly in the metropolitan areas. So I want to ask you a question. When we have news organizations announcing we declare that Joe Biden's president of the United States, or we declare whatever they declare, does that have any constitutional, legal, or substantive meaning other than the PR aspect at all? Is that how we choose our presidents?
Thank goodness, no. Just as the polls got it badly wrong. Have they gone out of business, by the way, or they fired everyone and said, we're going to start all over again? And the answer is, No, this should not be going on because it's all about power, achieving power. And that is quite dangerous if you're not seeking to vindicate a rule of law in a constitutional democracy. The Constitution should be held up as sacred. Here is a Hugo Black, a great liberal justice of the Warren Court era, always holding up the Constitution, pointing to it, showing the dog ears. Instead, there is a sense that we just want results, and we don't care what it takes. We don't care what the Constitution says. But to answer the fundamental point, the news organizations have zero power. They can try to influence, but it will be up to the Electoral College, which will meet, and it will determine, it will cast its votes, each state with its electors, chosen in the way, once again, that the legislatures determine. So that's going to happen in December, approximately December 12th. So we have over a month to go before the decisive votes are cast. Then the electors report to Congress and to the House of Representatives, and they will then say, here are our votes. So there's several steps that are yet to be taken. And never forget the role of the legislature. If the legislature of a state, let's just say Pennsylvania, believes that the election cannot be trusted, it can step in and determine how the electors are chosen from the Commonwealth.
That's right. And I said that the other day, and hell was rained upon my head by liberal law professors who, on the one hand, pretend to teach the Constitution, but on the other hand, despise the Constitution. And not only that, Ken Starr, you make the point. So the power is supposed to be in the state legislatures, then ultimately with Congress, because then Congress counts the votes and objections can be raised. And I won't get into all the weeds and processes, so forth. But decision desks and news organizations, as you point out, and I want to underscore, do not choose the President of the United States. They can give their opinion all they want. They can issue declarations all they want. But we follow the Constitution. Judge Starr, I want to thank you very much for your sober thinking and your edification for me and the rest of the country. God bless you, sir.